Hi, it's Saturday and I'm standing just outside the Said Business School looking over the old jam factory. Yesterday I ended up roughly here after coming back from Osney Bridge, whose collapse I talked about. And the day before I read a little excerpt about the life of G. Allen Shepherd, who lived at Riverside, the big house on the corner of East Street and North Street in Osney. And I'm going to walk from here to where Shepherd would have worked, namely Shepherd and Woodward in the centre of Oxford, the tailors and supplier of academic dress. As it happened, Shepherd and Woodward has moved around, and it used to be two businesses that then merged. And I'll see whether I can find the earlier locations as well as the place that it's currently at. Before I do that, I'm just going to look at two more oxen, which I've noticed on the Said Business School forecourt. There's one. And there's another ox over in the other corner.
Once I'm through with the kitchen, I'll message you.
Now let me head towards Cornmarket. That, as I said in my introduction, is the old jam factory. And that occupies an important place in Oxford history because it's where Frank Cooper set up for some time and made marmalade. And I think everybody knows Frank Cooper's marmalade. My favourite is the thick cut. And I'll come back and talk about the jam factory and Frank Cooper's first shop sometime. But that's where it is. So now I'm on Hythe Bridge Street. And I'm heading towards George Street. Right. So this is George Street, and I'm about halfway up it, approaching New Inn Hall Street. And I'm on my way to Corn Market. And it's Saturday, so it really is busy. Passing the bus station and the market. And I'm going to try to cut out some of these crowds by going into Corn Market via St Michael's Street. I'm now at the top of the north end of New Inn Hall Street. That's a bit better. Did some now coming down St Michael's Street. They're doing something big here. Now, I realise I may have made a mistake in my introduction. I can't remember. I'm not sure whether I talked about G. Allen Shepherd walking from his house to Shepherd and Woodward, but he wouldn't have done. He was born in 1911, according to the memoir, and his dad, Frank, he says, ran a tailoring business. So his dad, and possibly other members of his family, if they were involved, would have been the one doing the walking. But I like to think of one of them starting off from that house on a work day and walking roughly the routes that I'm taking now. So now I'm in the corn markets. At the north end, near the Saxon Tower and what used to be Boswell's. And I'm going to turn off for a moment while I work out where to go next. Right, so I want to get down to the other end of Corn Market so that I can do this in chronological order. I'm just checking that the buildings I'm looking for are still here, which they seem to be. I've come to this end of Corn Market because it's where Shepherd and Woodward seem to have started when Arthur Shepherd took over Brockington's at 62 Corn Market. 62 Corn Market isn't there anymore, so I can't show it to you. It was demolished as part of the Carfax Improvement Scheme in 1896. And what's there now is HSBC, the bank. So this building that houses HSBC, was built in 1896, by which time Shepherd had moved. Shepherd was still at 62 Corn Market, that is, in this location, in 1880, but he'd moved to 6 Corn Market by 1900. So let me find 6 Corn Market. I'm now on the other side of the street, and if I've matched up the numbers correctly, it was these two buildings. I don't have the field of view to get them all in at once, at least not unless I move round. One of them is now Oxford Spires and a money changer, and the other is Santa Nata selling Portuguese Pashdaishtanata. So those apparently are what were then number 6 and 7 Corn Market. Apparently the numbers have changed by one. And these are pictures of the buildings as they were then. That is before rebuilding. And that is after rebuilding. Have a look at that and then compare it with that. That. So this was a rebuild in 1907. Now it turns out that during the rebuild the business still needed somewhere to go, so they got temporary premises at 109 High Street, and that is the left-hand side of the building that Shepherd and Woodward now use. And that is what it looked like then. Again, this was in 1907. You can see the number 109. So that is 109 High Street, the left-hand side of the current Shepherd and Woodward, and that's what it was like in 1907. And it was temporary premises. They moved back here after it had been rebuilt. So that is Shepherd, and they stayed in these buildings until 1928 or 1929, when they merged with Woodward and moved to the current premises in the High Street, which, as I say, I'll show you in a bit. So let me now see if I can find where Woodward used to be. So I'm now going north up Corn Market again. So Woodward occupied 51 Corn Market, which, like 6 and 7, is still here. And I think, unlike 6 and 7, 51 still has the same number as it did then. Again, I want to get back so that I can fit all of the building in. So that is number 51. It's the one with the turret on the left, just right of what is Fruin Court. You can probably see narrow gap there. There's a blue plaque on the wall, and that leads to one of the entrances to the Oxford Union. Leads to one of the entrances to the Oxford Union and to some Brasenose College grounds. And that is 51 Corn Market, which was occupied by Woodward and which is now occupied by Oxford Gifts. I think I know which I would consider more useful. And that is 51 Corn Market as it was in Woodward's time. Notice the shape of the building. Then and now. Then and now. This is the book from which the photos come, Oxford Shops and Shopping, a pictorial survey from Victorian and Edwardian times by Michael L. Turner and David Vasey. Now, I can't find out exactly when Woodward was doing what, but it seems that he was probably at 51 Cornmarket in the early 1900s, and that he moved to the Shepherd Woodward current premises in the High Street in the early 1920s. So he occupied that for some time before Shepherd ended up there, although Shepherd had occupied it temporarily in 1907. So I'm going to now walk to those current premises, and I like to imagine both Shepherd and Woodward doing the same at various times, and probably they took the route that I'm going to take now, because certainly Cornmarket and the High Street were there. Now, did I say the company supplies men's clothes, and as far as I know, women's clothes. It certainly did when I last visited. And it also supplies what is now no longer regarded as part of everyday wear, though I think you could argue that at one time some of it was. And that's academic dress. If you saw my Insignia video, I took care before the Insignia ceremony started to wander around Oxford, finding as many students and dons, academics, as I could going to the ceremony. And they were dressed in their academic dress, which includes robes or gowns, and the coloured things maybe hanging from the back, hoods. The least prestigious gowns are black. Really unprestigious ones are just sort of long and flat. The more prestigious ones have a bat wing shape with a lot of material gathered around the yoke in the back. And their various lengths depending on what degree or what qualifications the wearer has. Really prestigious ones may be brightly coloured. This apparently dates from a time when dyes were much harder to acquire than they are now. So bright colours were a sign of status, something that's not unique to Britain, of course. And there is a whole complicated classification and system of university statutes and when you have to wear what, which I will talk about sometime, but not today, because it would fill in an entire video on its own. But you have to be a specialist in order to supply the right gown to the right person, and Shepherd and Woodward are. I'll mention, it's not as obvious as it used to be, that Shepherd and Woodward owns or run several other businesses too, including Walter's in Turl Street and Castell, now known as, I think it's the Varsity Shop. And I think there's one in Broad Street, and there's one next to Shepherd and Woodward.
Yeah.
So I'm walking down the High Street. And I'm approaching the current premises. I mentioned that Shepherd Woodward run some other businesses. Presumably they own them too. But there are businesses which are nothing to do with them. And one of the more prestigious is Ede and Ravenscroft there. Ede and Ravenscroft can be quite expensive. I once went in there to ask how much it would cost to make me a cape. I can't remember what material I told them, but it might have been velvet. And they said £2,300. One of the things I know about them is that they supply coloured socks. They supply coloured socks to people who are not allowed to wear coloured socks, or who don't dare to wear coloured socks because of the nature of their job, lawyers for example. But the Ede and Ravenscroft coloured socks have the colours low down where they're hidden by the shoe, so you can wear coloured socks without offending anybody. Isn't that clever? Ede and Ravenscroft also, and notoriously, supply some of the posher students with the suits and other gear that they wear when attending clubs such as the Bullingdon, which these clubs don't always have a good reputation. Their students are known for getting drunk and smashing places up and having loads of drugs and so on. So I'm still on the high street. I'm trying to negotiate streams of tourists. And that is Shepherd Woodward. Notice the house number, notice the shop numbers, sorry. 113, 110, 110, and 109, just visible on the left. The numbers are weird. And the reason for that is Oriel College. Oriel College decided they wanted a new street and just built it like that, destroying two shops, annihilating two shops in so doing. So that's King Edward Street. And what you used to have was a solid row of shops that went right across. No street down there. But Oriel wanted a street, so they got a street. And these premises were rebuilt, I guess. Built, I suppose. So these premises were built, I suppose, at the same time as King Edward Street was. So, those are the current premises, and that is number 109, as it was in 1907, when Shepherd occupied it temporarily, just while 6 and 7 Cornmarket Street were being rebuilt. Then, and now. Shepherd Woodward merged, as I think I said, in 1928 or 1929, and Shepherd moved from 6 to 7 Corn Market to this shop at the same time. And Woodward, before the merger, Woodward occupied 110, the building on the right, the right-hand half of the premises. Okay, well, what happened after Shepherd and Woodward merged? They continued to occupy these premises, and as far as I know, they have ever since. In 1954, they took the number 113, called the Varsity Shop there, and I think they've had that ever since. And I don't suppose the business has changed much since then. The main addition is probably the fact that students don't wear academic dress as much as they used to. One of the functions of the gowns was that students had to wear them when they were out of college so they could be identified and retrieved if they'd made trouble. And that's no longer necessary. For a similar reason, I believe, students used to have green lights on the bonnets of their cars. I think this regulation was introduced in 1926 and was only repealed maybe 10 or 15 years before the 21st century. In 1930, a chap called Dennis Venables was apprenticed to Shepherd and Woodward, and according to their history, he eventually took over from Shepherd, and the business has been in his family ever since. The Shepherd that I've been talking about, well, there were actually two, I suppose. Arthur Shepherd would have been running the business before 1895. He died and his son Ernest took over. The book that I showed you has got letters advising some of his contacts of this, but Ernest continued trading under the name of Arthur Shepherd. Ernest had a brother called Charles who he bought out, and that is more or less it. Okay, well, I want to finish with a warning. On Friday I looked at the collapse of Osney Bridge, and on Thursday I read an excerpt from the memoirs of G. Allen Shepherd, who lived at the big house Riverside in Osney. G. Allen Shepherd says that his father ran a tailoring business, and the website that the excerpt was on says that the tailoring business was Shepherd Woodward. Shepherd says that his father was called Frank. Well, I can't find a Frank mentioned in the other records that I looked at. And I don't know whether G. Allen Shepherd worked at the shop when he was old enough, but I can't find any mention of him either. So there seems to be at least one inconsistency there. There are also minor inconsistencies between the other records that I looked at, dates being off by a year and so on. So I want to finish with a warning. Don't trust anything that I say, and don't trust anything that the web says. Okay, see you next time.